The following feature presentation is part of the Skywalking Network.
Welcome to Star Warsologies, the podcast about science and other academic fields of study seen in Star Wars. My name is Melissa Miller. I'm one of your co-hosts and a former contributor to Star Wars Insider magazine, and I'm also a science writer.
And I'm James Floyd, your other co-host. I'm also a former contributor to Star Wars Insider magazine. It's so sad to say that. This episode, Star Warsologies, is going to chat about Star Wars Insider magazine with its final issue, number 237, out on newsstands. Our guest expert is Chris Cooper, who was the editor of the magazine starting in 2018. Welcome, Chris.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome, Chris. Yeah, I have to say changing all of that to like past tense is a little painful, but at least we get to see our names in the magazine one last time with the final issue and chat with you.
Well, nice for inviting me on to say hello and goodbye, literally in the same way.
Well, tell us a little more about how you got into Star Wars and got into being an editor of a magazine.
God, I mean, that's a long story, and that covers a huge amount of time because I'm ancient from being a very small little boy, not that small. I suppose I was 8, and we had a bookstore chain in the UK called W.H. Smith's, which is now no longer. They've changed the name and it's all rubbish. And the novelisation of the film came out in the UK a year before the film came out. I mean, it was just there and it was enticing because it had a really cool cover. You know, it said Star Wars on the front, so that was exciting. It had all the pictures in the middle. So every time we went into town, I'd go to the shelf where it was and just flick through it and look at the little pictures.
Awesome.
So that's really my earliest introduction. Around the same time, R2-D2 and C-3PO were on the Donnie and Marie Osmond show. And that was shown in the UK. And I think that's the first time I saw them moving.
Amazing.
Oh, look, robots. And it took some years before my dad said that C-3PO wasn't really a real robot, it was a man in a suit, which I didn't believe him. I would not believe him. So that's where it all started, really, not even the film, you know, the book and a light entertainment evening special with songs and skits.
That's amazing. You said that was out before the movie, like a year before the movie?
Yeah, because we were, this was the old days. You had it in May, didn't you? May 77. We got it December.
Oh.
And then January, but then only like in the West End of London where films would open there for a month or whatever before they went on general release. So in the UK, we didn't have it for 8-9 months until after.
Wow.
So we'd seen bits and bobs of it, but you know, there was no internet, but everyone had heard of it.
Right. Yeah. That's amazing. Because I'm thinking like, oh, well, certainly someone would pirate the movie, but even then, like, video cameras were like things that sat on your shoulders. Yeah. So you couldn't even sneak one of those
vision camera, smuggle that in and then reel them.
Right. Yeah.
I have a copy of the UK novelization. I picked it up in a street market in Thailand and it's like, oh, Star Wars. And then I look at it. Oh, hey, this is the UK one. And it's, you know, a little musty. Like, you know, obviously it had been traveled with a backpacker or something.
I would love it if you go in there and there's in like magic marker, Chris Cooper, you know, age 8.
Stored very carefully in the cupboard over there.
Got it, of course.
No one's having that off me.
So between that, 1977, you know, before even seeing the movie, you know, I guess a brief timeline of your Star Wars interaction for doing that, working in the comics, ending up at the magazine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because of Star Wars, I wanted to work in films and TV. Didn't really know in what capacity, but basically I wanted to be George Lucas and make things. Well, I wanted to make space stories, basically. So that was a career I pursued, not particularly effectively. I ended up working for BBC Worldwide, which is now called BBC Studios. And that was like, if you're watching Doctor Who in America before the Disney era, it was sold by BBC Enterprises, BBC Worldwide to whichever PBS channel there was. So I was working in the distribution area of that. They also made magazines. Doctor Who came back to TV. They started a children's comic and I started drawing pictures and writing jokes and stuff for that. So that's how I got into publishing. That led to writing comics. That led to doing a bit more editorial type work. Then I ended up doing Star Trek magazine.
Right.
James, did you write for that? You did, didn't you?
I did not, but our good friend Mark Newbold was all over that.
That'll be the one. Mark did it. Yeah, so I've been working with Mark for a long time now. So I did that for 5 years or so, and then they asked if I wanted to do Star Wars, which I said yes, because why wouldn't you want to do Star Wars? And that was it, really. I did do a Star Wars comic in about 2014 for about 8 issues, a UK children's comic, and that was good fun. Because that was just before there was Story Group or anything. So, you know, you had to be correct, but there was a
Right.
little bit more leeway to just have fun and be silly. And it was for children as well. So you had that license to explore a bit more than with the grown-up magazine.
What was that story called so that people can look it up?
It was literally called Star Wars Comic. It started off, it was the Clone Wars for a long time. Then they pivoted to calling it Star Wars when Clone Wars ended. There was only about 14 issues while it was called Star Wars before the license expired, and I think it didn't go anywhere else. They just started doing Lego magazines over at another company. No, lots of comic strips in there. I mean, it must be on Wikipedia.
I think it's linked there. I think that'd be really fun to check out. And the idea that you got to sort of add things to the story and to the galaxy far, far away is pretty great.
Yeah, it was good fun. I enjoyed doing that comic. It was a good fun little ride. I thought that would be it, though. That would be my 8 issues of involvement.
Right.
So I really wasn't expecting 3 years later. Yeah, it would have been 3 years late because I actually started on Insiderware in 2017. There was an issue where they were a bit behind, so I kind of filled in and edited, what was it, issue 173? And then I started on 179, which I think came out in early 2018.
So what was sort of day-to-day work for editing, being the editor of Star Wars Insider magazine?
Day-to-day. Well, it's a drawn-out process, really. I mean, it's not immediate. So when I plan an issue months and months in advance. I've got a pile of pitches from various writers and a few ideas of my own, and I'll mix them up. I'll do an issue plan, which then has to go off to Lucasfilm for approval so that they're happy with the content you're going to put into it. That's months before anything's commissioned or designed or anything. So that gets done. I always tried to work a good few months ahead so that I always had stuff rolling. That comes back and say, oh yes, we like this. Oh yes, we like that. So we commission people like you to either write the ideas that you came up with, or I'll give you something random to get cracking with. You'll come back with your writing. I will copy edit the writing. That has to go off for approval. That comes back, a few more tweaks, give it to the designer. The designer will design it. That goes off to approval after I've done a proofread. So it's a lot of backwards and forth and little processes of tweaking and changing and making everything perfect. Or imperfect if you don't like the feature when you read it eventually. And that's it really. It's a long drawn out process of one process and another process and another process until you're ready to turn it over for print.
Right.
Which is cutting a very long story short.
So you were never just working on one issue, but like what was the maximum number of issues you might actually be working on and thinking about?
It took a few years to get there. When I first started, it was like one issue to the next. And it was a bit of a panic because, to be honest, things were a little bit messy till I stepped in.
Right.
To sort it. So eventually I was do a year's worth of issue plans ahead of time. Okay. With a bit of leeway, depending on what would happen in the Star Wars world, what projects you didn't know about that might be announced that you could do some coverage of, last minute things that would come in or that would seem timely. But there was broadly a plan across a year.
Right. I guess I know that a little bit from the commissions or whatever that you sent me. It's like, okay, this is planned for, and it would sometimes be many months in advance.
You remember that idea you sent me a year and a half ago? Well, finally.
Right. No, but I mean, as a freelancer, that worked out pretty great for me because, I would just send you ideas as I had them. You clearly put them somewhere because a few of them did come around again. So, that's nice to know.
How was it long time ago? Star Wars Insider was a source for fresh news of a lot of Lucasfilm projects. When Disney took over, they kind of shuffled Insider off to the side saying, you're not getting the freshest news. And, the nature of magazines by the time of the internet was, of course, everything's been leaked out or reported on as it came out. And so, with monthly by monthly magazine, by the time you get it out, it's several months old. So how does that process of like picking out what things are going to be fresh for the magazine and still have value for the audience?
Fairly early on reached the depressing conclusion that the new section was kind of more of a summary of what's happened rather than breaking anything. The balance was timing features that were pertinent to what was going on. Like if a show was coming out, because we worked so far in advance, the content that we could give to the readers might not necessarily be the latest stuff, but it would give a framework for, say, if there's a new show starting on Disney Plus, we'd be able to provide a framework that helps you look back and fills in the gaps rather than Empire Magazine, who apparently are more important. I can say that because now I'm not because it's gone now. I can say that with some spite and bile. Yeah, they got the juice. We had to be more creative. Let's just say Insider's more creative than Empire Magazine, I think.
There you go.
But yeah, so it would take to put an issue together. Once I've commissioned stuff, it's a good 3 months or so before it's on the newsstand, maybe a little bit more. And that's various rounds of approval and everything else. So yeah, keeping on top of stuff when you've got the internet, that if something breaks, and bang, it's there. If it's not on StarWars.com, it'll be on a fan site. It'll be discussed on Reddit. It'll be everywhere. I think that's less Insider or Disney or Lucas It's just the nature of where the media is now. Magazines are just old-fashioned and take a while to do, and the internet is electronic and can do it instantly. And
right.
The powers that be have no control over what goes out, whereas everything the insider did was not controlled, but, measured and official and on message.
Right. Well, maybe this is a good part of the story for James and then I to talk about how we first got connected with you for this work. Mm-hmm. So, James, what's your Star Wars Insider origin story?
My origin story as a Star Wars Insider writer. I had been writing for StarWars.com for several years and basically kind of reached out to Jonathan Wilkins, who was the editor before Chris Cooper. I hadn't really talked to him all that much. I just kind of introduced myself. And then at Star Wars Celebration Europe in 2016, I got to meet him in person. And what I think helped sell me was that I managed to get 2 wristbands for his parents to see the Mark Hamill panel at Celebration Europe. And I think I was in golden. They had a great time. And so, yeah, I think it was very amenable. And he's like, yes, we've seen your work. We'd love to have you on. However, I'm leaving Star Wars Insider and I'm going to pass you on to Chris Cooper. And so Chris and I got to connect with each other. And I had originally pitched, I think my first pitch was the visit to Finns, Norway for the Hoth celebration there. But while that was in process, Chris came to me with a idea for a 10-year retrospective on the Clone Wars TV show. And so that was my first published article, was on the Clone Wars. And that was actually really fun to write because I like the Clone Wars and it was kind of a new style of writing for me.
So you didn't have to bribe Chris, it sounds like, with anything, just Jonathan.
Yeah, actually, I lost out there, didn't I? He got the good stuff and I was just like, oh, just do the work.
Jonathan, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I ratted you out.
Well, yeah, and I had you go first, James, because you were my connection to Star Wars Insider. So I met James because you were writing, I think it was a StarWars.com article when I was working on the research vessel Sally Ride here in San Diego. You came out and you were asking all these Star Wars questions. And to me, that is like waving a giant green friendship flag. So found each other pretty quickly and talked about R2-D2 and how awesome he is and stuff. And then I guess we must have just stayed connected. And then when I saw The Last Jedi, I came out of that movie like, someone must write about porgs and puffins. Someone must do it and it will be me. And so I think I'm sure I have the email. I think I just sent you an email being like, so I don't know exactly how this works, but I'd really love to pitch this. And you very kindly put me in touch with Chris. So, and I wrote a very official, like, page-long pitch about, this article and who I was and why I should be the one to write it. This is very early on in my sort of science writing and freelance pitching. And then I think any other pitch I ever sent Chris was like maybe 2 sentences. Like, hey, Chris, I had this idea.
Well, that's the thing. If I ever sent an idea that was more than a paragraph to Lucasfilm for approval, it was like, no, break it down. We just need to know the top lines. That's what I always encourage people to do. That porg feature was lovely. And James, I remember my favourite thing that you wrote for me was when you went to Death Valley. And I think you took your family and
yes,
you dressed up as Jawas, and which is just lots and lots of fun. And the blue milk one that you wrote for me, Melissa.
Yeah, no, the Death Valley one is my favorite of James's too. I love that picture of them. But sorry, I interrupted you when you were complimenting me, so please.
Oh, sorry. Yes, no. The blue milk feature was another one in a similar kind of vein. A bit lighter, a bit more fun. Why would anyone in a serious magazine do a feature about blue milk? Well, yeah, why not?
Yeah, because it's Star Wars and you have to. Yeah, and actually, that's one that came about because of this podcast, and there were a couple like that where we interviewed the person at San Diego State here that studies blue food on the podcast, and
it's their actual job. Is their actual job.
Yeah.
They're food scientists. The blue stuff is only a little bit of their job, but
right, exactly. So James, I think maybe found the person, or did I don't even know. Okay. Oh, I know. See, the San Diego State people are amazing because I connected with some of their like science communications officers at the university in the science departments and just told them about the podcast. Like, hey, I'm always looking for, Star Wars fans who are willing to geek out about this kind of stuff and have silly conversations like about blue food. And they sent me someone because I think that this researcher specifically mentions, Star Wars when they talk about the very few, natural existing blue foods on Earth. not, and that clearly that's different in a galaxy far, far away. So that one was especially fun for me also because I got to come up with some recipes. No joke, because I can't throw food away. I still have some blue pretzels in my freezer because it took me a couple trials to make blue pretzels. And so I couldn't eat as many pretzels as I'd made. So I put them all in the freezer. Maybe I'll get one out and have one this weekend. But yeah, I got to make some recipes, which felt super fun. And I'm sort of hoping that eventually that might lead to some of these other pop culture recipe books that seem so popular. Yeah, but the porg one will always have a special place in my heart since it was my first. And it was something that felt really personal and stuff for me since my brother's an ornithologist. And so I've been looking at birds my whole life, whether I wanted to or not. And so it was really fun in The Last Jedi to see that.
Well, I appreciate all the love for the Death Valley article. As you mentioned, it was a family trip, and being able to turn that experience into an article for Star Wars Insider and then add to it with, the information that I learned over the years about the other California filming sites. So it's a combination travelogue, but it's also a guide to the sites. And it ties back to my favorite Star Wars Insider article of all time. It was called Star Wars Road Trip. And so that was kind of my favorite article of all time. And to be able to do kind of a follow-up piece was just a real gift. I love travel. I wrote about Ireland. I wrote about Norway, and doing one. It was just fun. It was just a lot of fun.
Is David West Reynolds, according to Wikipedia?
I think it was, yeah. They had a really cool cartoon, I think, at the front of the piece, and a nice map with dotted lines all over it.
Yeah, the cover was a cartoon of Chewbacca and some others all in this car driving. But yeah, I think David West Reynolds, he's like one of the original Star Wars archaeologists. He and Scott, I think, went on this road trip together to Death Valley, and they said that they wanted to bury some special thing out there in Death Valley, and then they realized, no, we probably shouldn't do that in
a national monument.
Now, I think it was a national monument at the time, but yeah, that they can't be digging up the place, even though, when they filmed the movie, they were doing whatever.
Yeah. Well, and I went to Death Valley last year, just for a trip because it's a, half-day drive from San Diego here. And I brought my Star Wars action figures from when I was a kid to recreate some scenes. And I looked at James's article and stuff like that about it. If I haven't already sent you this video, Chris, I will, because it makes me laugh every single time. I got one of my friends to go up the little slot canyon thing and take a video of me as if I'm R2-D2, just walking around going, it's maybe the funniest thing I've ever done. Always inspirational to go visit these sites and stuff like that. And it was actually really funny because multiple people, this is just a short hike, multiple people stopped me and were like, I knew I recognized this place because I was I had all my Star Wars stuff on me, and they're like, this is Tatooine, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, they actually filmed it here. So I got to educate people, which is, also one of my favorite things. So. Well, do you have some other non-James and Melissa related highlights that you'd like to share about your time?
Are there any other type of highlights? Really?
There are lots of fabulous writers for Insider over the years, and so many that there were regular contributors. I'm sure you must have something to say about that.
No, it's all about you two.
I'm okay with that.
No, this is quite a genuine thing. It's because I've been doing it for so long. I have real trouble remembering if I've done something before. Hang on, no, I should rephrase that. I used to have real trouble remembering if I'd done. Now it doesn't matter. But, if someone would come to me with an idea and I'd sit there thinking, that rings a bell, have I done that? And sometimes, I did it 6 years ago, but that was 6 years ago.
Right.
But yeah, there's been lots of lovely features, nice interviews and stuff. But highlights for me personally, because that, to a certain extent, that becomes part of the job. I see these features, I live with them for so long before they go to print. The things that stick with me are the things where I've got to get away from my desk and meet other human beings. So, one of those was 2023. Was that the last Celebration Europe? I met James there, and I met you, Melissa, obviously. And half a dozen, maybe 8 or 9 people, writers that I've only known through a tippy-typey email address, the occasional Zoom call, but not very often.
Right.
So one of my personal highlights is meeting all those writers in person for the one time that I may actually ever get to do it.
Right.
Actually, yes, almost certainly, given the turn of events. And that was great because they all became more than just words on a page. That's an absolute highlight. It does relate to your observation about writers, but also I got to go to Pinewood Studios and Mark Newbold and sort of hang out at the creature shop there and meet various RT units. And
Amazing.
that was great. And I also I wrote a feature, because sometimes I do features because why not? I'm local. So I went to Elstree and interviewed a man and got to walk around the site and walk around the Tesco's car park that used to be where Stage 5 was, and up around the Lucas stage and stuff. So those kind of getting out, meeting people. It's not really the magazine though. It's just the opportunities that the magazine afforded me was great.
The real magazine was the friends we made along the way.
Yes, indeed.
I love it. I love it. Well, no, I mean, Celebration London was definitely a highlight for me too. And because, meeting you after 4 or 5 years of emailing, and also Jake Lunt Davis, which is someone that I got connected to because of that Porg article, the creature designer and concept artist behind the Porgs. And then, continuing to work with him on other projects and then feature him in his own feature later with all of his amazing sketches and stuff. So that was a real highlight to be there. And because we were so close to Pinewood, they brought, droids and creatures and stuff like that to the celebration. That was amazing.
One of the cool things from that celebration was not only meeting you, Chris, but being in the Insider booth and getting to talk to a few fans that were interested in Star Wars Insider magazine and writing in general. That was really kind of cool. Like there weren't many that came, but there's a couple that asked really good questions and were exploring becoming a published writer.
Yeah, there was a couple of people who came up and had lovely chats with them and then commissioned them off the back of it in the end when they sent me some ideas. I said, because poor Jonathan, my predecessor, was there on behalf of Titan, standing behind a stall that was selling Star Wars Insider magazines, but we were right beside the Forbidden Planet stall that had lots of toys and fun stuff. So we had a queue.
That's right.
Behind that stall, they were giving out pins, little Star Wars pins. There was a different collectible pin every day that was only going out on that day. And that just happened to be, the queue for that stretched around the Forbidden Planet store and stretched around in front of our little Insider bit. So most of the time we were just obscured from the general public. So if people did fight their way through to talk to us, it was quite nice. And we did give them a bit of time.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that because I remember there being like an active audience, but they were not. They were there for something else.
Interesting enough. They just wanted a badge.
Right, exactly. Well, you mentioned doing a couple of features, and you also did like the message from the editor at the beginning of every issue. Was that something that you had creative control over, or were you sort of like given topics? Okay.
If I'd made any typos, they'd be corrected, which I often do. I always enjoyed writing those. I always tried to make them, or at least part of them, a bit funny. This will be an interesting fact for you. Yesterday, the last thing that I submitted for the last issue for approval was my last editorial, which I'd kind of saved up to send off. So that just went off yesterday. So it's still a bit raw.
Yes, we are recording this back on St. Patrick's Day a bit in advance of when it will come out. So I can understand that. I look forward to reading it.
I hope it's sweet. Basically, I just wanted to make some people cry. So, if they cry. And another thing in that issue, which is particularly lovely, we've got an interview with the editors, or some of the former editors, including myself. But because of the next issue page at the very end, I asked Dan Madsen to write an afterword, because he started Insider, or the Lucasfilm Fan Club magazine. He started it. I thought it'd be very nice to have him have the very last page, and he says some very nice things in it. So look out for that when you pick up the issue. It's quite just a nice sense of circularity.
Yeah, I like that bookend.
That is almost making me a little tear up right now to have Dan Madsen come back.
Page after page, you'll flick through a page and something better make you cry.
Well, yeah, and so in this issue, I also have an article, but it's not me. It's mostly other people's writing, just their memories about contributing to Insider and what it's meant to the fandom and all of those sorts of things. And even though I've read all of them as they came in, I know that going through that is definitely going to get me a little teary-eyed. Although I'm curious to see, because technically now my subscription has ended. So I think I'm actually going to have to go to a Barnes & Noble or a newsstand to buy this one last issue.
Yeah, and there's several versions available. You can always buy it online.
Right, okay.
Somehow I ended up with 2 subscriptions overlapping at the same time, and so you can have my other copy if I get 2 copies.
Okay, thanks. Let me know when it comes in. I mean, I don't want you to give away what you say in that final thing, but, what is your sort of feelings about the legacy of Insider Magazine and, your time there? Big question, I guess.
It's mixed feelings. I mean, I'm kind of the nature of rolling deadlines over 8 years and then 5 years of Star Trek before that, I'm kind of relieved I don't have to have that constant, domino effect of work to do. So on one level, it's a relief. But it is really sad that this thing that I used to go to comic stores in London and buy imported copies of, back in tail end of the 80s. I remember very clearly, actually, when Heir to the Empire came out. I had no idea that was coming because it wasn't really reported anywhere and I hadn't picked up any magazines that would suggest it was coming. And that came out roughly the same time. I think I went to a bookstore in Birmingham and it had as well the source book for the role-playing game. So after 7 years, whatever it was it 7 years?
About
10 years. It was a long time. It felt like a long time when suddenly there was this smattering of things coming along. And the only thing that had been around in those intervening years was every quarter there'd be a copy of Star Wars Insider in a comic shop if I happened to get there at the right week for somebody else not to have bought it. Insider was sort of quite a precious little thing.
Right. So
when I eventually got to be editor, it was like ridiculous, really. I don't think I ever really, for a good 4 years or so, fully understood the importance of what I'd taken on. Right. I think it was when we got to the 200th issue that I started thinking, actually, this means a lot to a lot of different people. It's not just my thing. There's lots of people it's brought together. So yeah, finishing, it's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah. No, everyone I talked to really said that is like, for those of us who lived through the lean years, between movies, between projects, all that expanded universe stuff you found out about through the magazine. And so even in changing times, and it's not breaking news anymore necessarily, but it's always really interesting stuff you can't find other places, in terms of the behind the scenes and, just learning more about your favorite properties. Yeah, it was somewhat easy actually to narrow down all the quotes and blurbs I got from people just because that was repeated so often, right? This got me through the dark times, between 1983 and, 1999 movies and things like that.
Well, even then, when the prequels came up, Star Wars Insider had just a wealth of stuff about the making of the prequels, but also really good interviews with not only the prequel cast members, but going back and finding, original trilogy cast and crew. And I think that's one of the big legacies is just there's this wealth of interviews that have been done over the years with all the people that have worked on Star Wars in different ways. And, I think that's something that maybe, in our time of getting interviews really easily to big sources like Empire Magazine or whatnot, that is like, we've got this huge trove of, firsthand accounts of different people's roles in Star Wars.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it's always been able to cover people on the fringes, not the big stars, but the people who did something really, really interesting, a tiny little job, a little part of it. And I was always fascinated by special effects and visual effects, and I love ILM bits and making of bits and prop bit and all of that. So I always get quite excited when I manage to get an interview or a feature about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's
what sustained me when I was a kid. I was so fascinated with that and the process of making films.
Right.
And it's nice, as you say, that the magazine over the years, its focus has its style has been to reflect that rather than today's environment. I think is much more marketing led, where you get some sound bites from a major star during a press junket, promoted on video podcasts and what else. So it's a shift in emphasis that I think is a shame. And with Insider going, where's that going to go? I mean, you'll get some on StarWars.com, I guess.
Yeah, no, those are the things that interest me the most too, is the behind the scenes, the, things we take for granted, because it's, it is magic. Like, I want to know the magic trick, I'll see the movies, but then I also want to know. So being connected to like Fawn Davis talking about the ILM prequel things, and probably my favorite panel I've ever put on was at Star Wars Celebration in London with Jake, the concept artist, and Lee Towersey, who's the, droid wrangler there, and just talking about all those things like, oh yeah, here's the box I'm hiding behind in that scene to run the droid. And, all those little things that are going on that we sort of take for granted and can then look for. It gives you an excuse to watch the movies all over again.
Or one of the many sad things about Insider going away is, as a fan, I'm not a particularly sort of convention-y going person. It's not a bit overwhelmed by the massive crowds and the noise and nowhere to sit down. But because of Insider, I've had to go and do those things, or I've gone and met people. So I've met Lee, I've met Jake, I think, you guys, obviously. Without Insider, I won't have that impetus anymore to go out and meet other fans. And that's something that I'm only just beginning to think, oh, that's a bit of a shame. It'll just be me and my old friends from donkey's years go nattering in the pub instead of meeting all these new people. And it is a shame. It's a genuine shame. I'll just sit here and have a little sob while I carry on with it.
No, and I mean, I do love conventions, but I have to say there's something really special about Star Wars Celebration. You know, the fact that it is everyone from the same fandom, and especially because that fandom online can be so toxic. Yeah. It's so nice that the fandom in person feels so welcoming, and so even James and I both went to Japan last year, and to me it was amazing to see, you know, how Star Wars fits into the culture in Japan and how many people traveled from places to be at that. Yeah, the conventions are great, but there is also the whole side of it that is just, you know, the big stars and the big announcements and all that kind of stuff. So you got to look a little deeper to find the stuff that I love to see. Well, maybe it's too soon. Maybe we should ask you again in a year.
This time next year, you'll be off to Anaheim, won't you?
Yes.
Which I was hoping the magazine would hold on at least that long.
I was hoping too. That is like, can we get to the 50th anniversary of Star Wars?
Yeah, it seems kind of wild. I'm sure this is not something you haven't thought of before, but I'm curious, like, did you have plans? You said you planned sort of a year out. Like, were you already thinking about 2027, 50 years, you know?
I was giving it some thought. I mean, I don't think I'm giving stuff away when I say we had to pitch. It must have been about a year ago. The license comes up every couple of years, so we have to repitch for it. So I did have to do a plan that was kind of 2 years out of how we would lead up to the 50th anniversary. And I was mildly excited, but I don't know, we'd gone down from 8 issues to 6 issues the previous year, so it was kind of beginning to feel a little bit shaky. The magazine market, I don't know if it's the same in the States, but you go into a bookstore in the UK, there's either no magazine section. I mean, the last time I went into the big one in town where I live, I thought they'd got rid of it altogether, but it was behind some soft drinks and around the corner, whereas it used to be at the front of the store. So with the market the way it is, I knew the writing was on the wall, and I was told in August, I think last year, that it wasn't carrying forward. So at that point, I just abandoned all plans for the 50th anniversary. But I was definitely thinking, we could do something really cool and fun. And we're not. There you go.
I am looking forward to Star Wars Celebration in Los Angeles next year, because that is, you know, an easy trip for me to make and contribute to and hopefully be part of in some way. I know we talked about it for London, and I've talked about it for the other celebrations too. I always wanted to do like an insider freelance writing panel, you know, get some of the other people together and talk about our work and stuff. And every time I have done a Star Wars panel with any writers on it, they've all done something for Insider. I did one at, James, what was the con we did last year? Legacy?
Yeah, Legacy Expo.
Expo.
The Expanded Universe Con. It was a lot of fun, very chill vibe. But yeah, there was a lot of people there that had been featured in Star Wars Insider or had written for Star Wars Insider.
Yeah, it was like a constant trend of when I was talking to people. I've moderated a panel with people who had done comics and stories and books and stuff like that for the Star Wars universe. And, you know, all of them, I think, had at some point written a feature or, you know, something or been highlighted in Star Wars Insider. So it was, you know, nice to go through and ping all of those people and all the ones you connected me to sort of talk about the end of the magazine, even if obviously very bittersweet.
Yes.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time so we can start asking our sort of wrap-up questions, unless James or Chris, there's anything else you definitely want to get to.
Well, I tell you what, there's a question that I'm reading. If someone's interested in writing or editing a magazine.
Those are our wrap-up questions, yeah.
So I'm asking it for myself, because I don't know. What am I going to do? I think what you guys are doing, I mean, we live in an age where you don't have to be restricted to a platform, an existing platform. Creating your own platform, you can create your own platform. You can do podcasts, you can write your own stuff. It may not be official, but it's no less valid for doing it. The market for writing for magazines is dwindling. So obviously there's the dreadful nonsense of AI that writes nothing for you, but writes more quicker than you can. Right. There's a lot more competition and a lot less avenues for doing it. So I think if you've got a great idea and you've got a platform that you can do it on, like talking about the science of Star Wars is a fantastic angle. And I wish you every success going forward.
What's next on your plate? Or is there a dream project that you want to work on?
Do you know, I don't know. This is a question I've been asking myself recently as a large gaping hole in my work calendar is opening up ahead of me. So I really don't know what I'm going to do next. I mean, the odd thing about ending up editing magazines is I think of myself as a writer first and foremost, and kind of accepted the Star Trek editing job because I thought it would open opportunities to write more stuff, which has to a certain extent. But, you know, I think I'd like to get back to just writing. But at the same time, for the reasons I've just noted, there are less avenues for making an income from it. So I honestly, I don't know what I'm going to be doing next. I would like to do some more writing. I would like to write cool films and things. So my dream project is very much a dream. I'll see what happens. I'm just riding off into the sunset, and who knows what's on the other side of the ocean.
I'm sure we'll hear from you, though. You got to let us know, or maybe we'll work on something together.
I'll probably be begging for a job. I mean, if either of you get a decent job, I'll probably come begging. Remember me?
I see. Yeah, right. Part of what we talked about a little bit is like, yeah, the networking and the connections and things like that get you there. So if we're going to talk about, other freelance writing gigs, I never wrote for Star Wars Insider for the money, right? Like, we don't have to.
God, no. Jeez, yeah. No one writes for the money.
Right. It was always one of those things where, because I did have people ask me about it, and the idea for this podcast, I think very much sort of came out of that, right? Like, I wrote this article about the Porgs, James and I were connected, and I was like, it's not just this. We could both think of 30 or 40 topics. And while I was like isolating in a hotel room once before a research trip during COVID, we like had a long conversation about putting something like this together and committing to it. And I don't think we'll ever run out of topics. But it is hustling for your own thing, right? We're not making any money from this. Insider was always really exciting. To see something in print is always exciting, right? I wrote for Nerdist for a while, and those are all, online. But having, the glossy magazine was nice, but this was never something, what was it? Well, let's find out. I got 10 cents a word, 10 UK cents a word. So maybe James got $1, I don't know. But,
No. I also got 10 pence a word.
And it didn't change for the whole time I've been.
Yeah.
Because I had to change it. This is what Titan pay.
Right.
So woe betide anyone who asks for more.
Right. So anyone who ever asked me about it, I would, I'd talk about money. This is not a hang up I have. I would be like, it's amazing. Working with Chris is great. It's amazing to see your name, and your picture and your words in the magazine. But, you'll get a couple $100 at best, which is great. But, doing a couple of those a year was always just sort of for fun. So, if we're talking about people aspiring to this, just know those sorts of things going in.
Oh, yeah. It's like when people say, oh, what's it like editing the magazine? I was like, well, I do a lot of typing. I think they imagine there's a lot more land speeders and creatures involved. But no, there's mainly tap, 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 tappity, tap, tap, tap.
Right.
Well, I got to write off a lot of my trips as business expenses. So there were several years where my writing income was quite negative because it was like, yes, I went to Ireland and I got paid, a couple $100. But,
right.
You did go to Ireland. I mean, you went to some beautiful places.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, James. And something actually I'm doing in the next month here with my taxes is, okay, wait, what can I, count as a business expense? So good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we run out of time, Chris, I do want to know your favorite Star Wars character. On Wikipedia, I want to say it says your favorite is Wedge. So I'm just curious if that's correct.
I did say that. He is one of my favorites. I mean, am I allowed to have more than one?
Yes.
You can have more than one.
Okay. Well, I mean, I do like Wedge. I've always liked Wedge. I like the fact that he just cropped up. I thought it was nice that there was one other person who managed to live through all these battles. And there he was. I mean, he didn't necessarily make it to the end of the battle. There's probably a get-out clause somewhere along the way, but he tried. Bless him. But it's really R2-D2 or Han Solo, I think, for different reasons. I mean, R2-D2 because when I saw the first photograph or the first Donnie and Marie Osmond show, whichever way round it was a long time ago, I can't quite remember. But when I saw R2-D2, I thought, whoa, that's amazing. It might be because he looks a bit like a Dalek with his domed head. So I already had a propensity for liking dome-headed robot creatures. So that might be it. It might be because he's mainly blue and I like the colour blue. And Han Solo, because Han Solo, come on.
Yeah.
He's got the coolest clothes. He's got the coolest spaceship. He's got a cool best mate. So, I'd put Wedge. All right, Wedge is now in third place. Or second place with a joint first.
So we like blue Daleks, but I always noticed that your little caricature sketch in your column was you with the pilot's helmet. So Wedge kind of makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's an easy costume. There's a practical reason for that as well. To have a costume, I don't have the full TIE Fighter costume. I just have the helmet. If you want to have a Star Warsy picture of yourself that shows your face with a helmet, I mean, it's pretty much the only option, apart from the Rebel Trooper, I guess.
Right.
I didn't want to go Imperial because they're the baddies. I'm not having anything to do with that.
Right. Yeah. X-Wing pilot. I mean, I have one of those action figures of yourself, and for sure I did it in an X-Wing pilot uniform.
Really? Oh, that's cool. Is it on the shelf? Show me.
I did not know you had this.
Oh, that's grand.
Yeah, they like scan your face and put it on, and there were like 5 or 6 options, and I was like, oh, X-Wing pilot for sure. So I get it. Yeah, it was a Comic-Con thing you could do.
Oh, did you just mention Comic-Con? You did, didn't you? Right, here's something that you don't know, because I don't know if it's been publicised yet, but there is a special Comic-Con exclusive Insider 237. So people who are listening to this after the event might be able to buy a back issue, but if you two are going, make sure you go by wherever they sell it. It's got gold on it, and so watch out for that. If you want a special edition to mark the end of an era, go and pick that up.
Look for it in July when it comes to Comic-Con in San Diego, right?
Right.
July. Yeah. Oh, they'll have heard this then. All right, good. Swamp the stand. Make it sell big.
That definitely sounds like something I'm going to need. And I'm going to go and autograph every copy, on my article. And just
because, and also, you're in the photographs down the bottom. So just walk around like that.
Did you see me? Huh?
Oh, look at me. Would you like to buy this for twice the cover price? I'll sign it.
I was going to say, hold it up instead of a badge when you go through the doors. And, it's like, I'm Melissa Miller of Star Wars Insider Melissa Miller.
Don't you know who I am? That's exciting to know, though. I do always love the Lucasfilm. I'd say it's a booth, but it's really a huge part of the floor at San Diego Comic-Con. Can usually find me or James there throughout the weekend. Well, Chris, is there anywhere people can find you if they want to? Are you on social media? Or, I guess you don't know exactly what's up next, but
I don't know what's up next. I avoid social media. However, if I can plug my own work, I've written various plays. If you go to bigfinish.com, I've written Doctor Who's and Blake Sevens and things. So go and buy some of those and listen to them. I'm not in them, obviously, but I wrote them. And they're about space things. And if you like Star Wars, you like other space things too. So seek out space things and enjoy.
Amazing. Well, it was so nice to have you on, Chris. I really appreciate you coming and chatting with us so candidly, and didn't realize it was going to be quite so fresh of a conversation.
It really is fresh. I mean, we're right in the middle of everything's there. I'm just waiting for things to come back with notes now, and then it's done. Yeah. So I imagine by this time next week, that will be my end point for Inside.
I know, it's like all big sigh.
Let's pour one out for the Insider.
There we go. No, but thank you for spending time with us. I didn't realize you'd be still in the mix of everything, and we really appreciate your time and your years and years of effort on this important thing.
Thanks. I think it is important. I think I maybe took it for granted in the early days that it wasn't important, but it is important. I'm glad that I got a chance to play with it. And in a way, it's quite special to be the last person to do it. So
there you go.
That's quite nice.
I like that.
Probably not headstone worthy, but thanks for having me on to talk and to have a little exit interview, because I don't suppose I'd have another opportunity for an exit interview. So it's been nice to just get these things off my chest.
Right. Yes. Anytime you want to come back, you're welcome. And
I'd have to learn some science before you let me back, surely.
Nah, we'll come back and have the dirty secrets of Star Wars Inside.
It wouldn't be a very full podcast, because it's been a pleasurable thing to have done for all these years. I've worked with lots of lovely people, and I'm now just dragging the end out. It's like I don't want to go, isn't it? It's like I don't want to go.
I'm trying to think of a good Star Wars line for this. There's got to be something.
No one has ever really gone.
That's right. There's the one. You got it.
Any one of you would have it.
We can always come back in animated form like Firefly.
There you go. I love it. Yeah, there's a space story they might need help telling.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
If Nathan Fillion is listening to this, he's got a Star Wars fascination with science and old magazines.
Yeah.
I'm for hire.
We all are for hire.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone listening, hit us up and we'll bring all of our friends with us. So, amazing. Well, thank you, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Chris, for coming on and sharing Star Wars Insider stories.
That wraps up this episode of Star Warsologies. We want to thank our guest, Chris Cooper, so much for being here and commiserating and talking about the legacy of Insider Magazine. And we want to thank all of you for listening.
If you're looking for links or other things we talked about, check out our show notes page available at skywalkingthrough-neverland.com/star-warsologies. And also check out our Star Warsologies YouTube channel, where we post episodes with related visuals from Star Wars.
Yes, and our show notes page will definitely have links to all of our Wikipedia pages with our bylines and other things that we talked about this time. If you have an idea for a topic for Star Warsologies, or you know an expert that we should interview, let us know at Star Warsologies on Instagram and Blue Sky, or at Star Warsologies, that's OLOGIES @gmail.com.
No topic is off limits, even if the kids on @Addon go to the barber to get skeleton crew cuts.
We also have a fan group on Facebook. It's the Star Warsologies podcast fan group. So join us today and chat with us and your fellow listeners. Please also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite service and share it with your friends.
And if you like puzzles, my Star Wars Crossword Puzzles book is out from Chronicle and is available at your local bookstore or on bookshop.org, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and other online booksellers.
We are part of the Skywalking Network, where you can find a variety of other great shows about Star Wars, Disney, and Marvel, including the Max FX podcast, Neverland Clubhouse, and the flagship show, Skywalking Through Neverland. There's also a YouTube show called Today in Star Wars History. You can find all of that at skywalkingnetwork.com.
See you next time on Star Warsologies, where we will be talking about chemistry and not just the type between Leia and Han.
Nice.